I'll try to record this in one shot. First attempt. All right, so you are building some kind of an application. You're using Codex, you're using Cloud CLI, you're using some other coding agent, and you are trying to figure out whether to use Lambda, whether to use a container-based system for hosting your compute, or whether just to go straight to an EC2 instance like a VM. So what are your choices? And I'm going to concentrate exclusively on AWS because obviously I work for AWS, so I know it really, really well. All right, so your first option, Lambda. In today's world, Lambda is probably the easiest way of getting started. Why? Well, even in previous scenarios, because it's self-managed, it scales up, scales down as you need it, and it's quite easy to deploy your applications. What are the disadvantages of using Lambda? Well, first of all, Lambda, for the most part, I'm not going to talk about sort of like specialized offerings, but for the most part, Lambda has a cold start. Yes, you can pay for it to run constantly, but then why do you need it? That's one thing. Second of all, it has a short running span, so it can run for 15 minutes and it needs to bounce essentially or end afterwards. What does that mean? Let's say you have some kind of a socket connection from your UI to your backend. Lambda is not a good option. Let's say you need your UI to be updated whenever a backend receives an update. Lambda is not a good option. All right, so let's say that's a requirement. Well, now you have a couple of other options. You have on AWS, you have ECS, which is a container service. ECS Fargate, same thing, but the actual containers are completely self-managed. Similar to Lambda, but for containers. Then you have EKS and EKS Fargate. And you have AppRunner, but AppRunner now is on maintenance mode, in maintenance mode. So let's concentrate on EKS and ECS. It's very easy to containerize your application, especially you tell Codex or Cloud AI or Kiro, I just want to containerize this application, everything will be done for you. Now, go with EKS if you really need to tweak how your application communicates inside of the cluster, and also if you need a lot of the bells and whistles that come with EKS, such as, let's say you need to install Kong, and you need to be able to create API keys and a whole bunch of other things, and you want to contain it within the same sort of EKS cluster. Kubernetes is probably the right choice for you, but you better understand what you're doing there, because if you don't, it's very hard to understand how to properly scale it up, scale it down, how to monitor it, how to constantly make sure that it's updated, and so on and so forth. So just make sure you want the hassle of managing your Kubernetes clusters. Even though it's fully managed, so to say, it's not really fully managed. You're still doing some of the management. ECS is a much simpler service to use, and in the world of, again, coding agents, I usually default on ECS. Why? Because if you run the smallest service when it comes to ECS on EC2 instances, using EC2 instances, it's going to cost you about $3 or $4 per month. Yes, you might need the ALB that you will pay extra for, but if you have a shared ALB, then you can easily cut your costs by, again, sharing your LB amongst many different services. So ECS Fargate is a little bit more expensive. You still need an LB, but the scaling is done for you completely, and it's even more significantly simpler to manage or essentially everything, almost everything is managed for you than when you use ECS with EC2 instances. But again, I default with ECS to ECS with EC2 instances simply because of the cost, because it's significantly less expensive. And again, with Codex and Cloud AI, you can easily tell the agents how you want it to scale and how you want it to be set up, and the coding agents do the heavy lifting for you. So that's the compute I usually land on. Now the times that I use Lambda is usually when I use queues such as SQS. And the reason is very simple. It's very well integrated into the AWS ecosystem, and it's very easy to set up. So any kind of event-driven development, I use Lambda for. Hopefully this was useful.